Hello, everyone. The following is a conversation with a good friend of mine and my real teacher, Professor Alex Candor. Well, this guy has an extremely interesting biography, and basically, he achieved many different things in his life. But what's even more important than that, considering the topic of our today's discussion, he is a true fan of science fiction. And we're going to discuss the genre of science fiction and its impact on our human life and human development. That's why let's dive right in. So, Professor Alex, well, first of all, I want to say thank you because I'm really pleased that you agreed to participate in this conversation. For me, it's a pleasure and an honor, so thank you very much.
Oh, conversations with you guys had always been pleasure. So yeah, it's definitely
Thank you, sir.
absolutely
Thank you.
my pleasure.
Uh, you know what? Considering this conversation, this science fiction conversation, I'm also pleased to have this conversation because what I noticed from my personal experience that I already have is that now it's really difficult to talk to someone on some sort of a serious topic, on a serious question, because what I notice, what I observe, is that when you try to initiate such a conversation on some serious matter, many
Hmm.
people will just simply, joke around. They can even make fun of you. They will like tease you with some jokes, like ha 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 ha, and they will quit this conversation. And I do personally think that sometimes it's the question that maybe people are afraid of, facing the reality that there are some serious questions, interesting questions that are worth discussing, but often people would rather, I think, put some sort of a mask on them, this mask of humor, and just, avoid any sort of serious questions. And that's why I really value these sorts of conversations, these types of conversations on serious topics, because I really do see. I don't know whether it's a trend because I don't know how the situation was like 20 or 30 years ago, but now I see that it's difficult to find someone, and not even to find, but to initiate such a conversation. That's like from my observations what I can say.
I can comment on that actually. I mean, it's not maybe exactly the topic of science fiction, but it is a kind of science fiction because this is all because of the internet. Because in the older days, like let's say before internet era and in the 90s, right? The uh, people, the community was still kind of isolated, in terms of scholars, more intellectual people and such. And information and knowledge was shared in the community, and it went to, to public or people with less education at will. All right. If a group of people, right, with better education, if they wanted to, they released some information and knowledge to other groups of people. But internet, brought everyone together in a one big community in a way. And, people with less education became the new intellectuals because they have the ground now. Everything is exciting and they have access to information and they're very crowded. So, in a culture of popularity, right? If you're a popular person, people listen to you. In a way, you're an influencer, right? With YouTube videos or on the social media. So it is an opportunity for the uninteresting people to become interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the era of uninteresting or uninteresting, or the regular people, the common people, um, which who has an opportunity to become someone.
Mm-hmm.
And they boldly use those opportunities, and they are mostly opinionated, and what they say makes more sense than the really knowledgeable people in a certain area because they are crowded and they have followers. Okay, and for that very reason, when you speak to someone, deep into a topic, it's very hard to find them because in this major crowd, okay, with all those sounds and voices in almost every area of life, those people are buried. You have to dig to find them. That's why.
Yeah, so like
They're still
one of the
there.
ideas, yeah, that previously you had to really achieve something, you had to be like acknowledged for that achievement in order to be able to say something basically or to comment something. But now you have the ability to upload any type of information uh,
Exactly.
24
And become a
24
sudden
7.
expert.
Yes. And
Suddenly you're an expert, right?
and be named a specialist or an
Exactly.
expert. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you're loud. If you're loud, you're a specialist.
Yeah, if you have the access, right, right. Uh, so, considering science fiction, I would like to sort of, put myself in a position of a beginner that just has recently started delving into the topic of science fiction, and that's true because, well, previously I was not so interested. I've read something from Soviet science fiction, which is fantastic. For example, Strugatsky brothers and other great, great writers, great authors. But I knew nothing about if we can call this American or Western type of science fiction. But just recently, I've read Heinlein, Starship Troopers, and I've read Isaac Asimov,
Yeah.
I Robot. Yeah, I remember that you specifically emphasized Isaac Asimov in our classes. And by the way, Isaac Asimov was born not far away from the location I'm now in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was
I
born.
thought he was Russian born.
Isaac
Was he
Asimov.
Belarus?
He was born in what's now called the Smolensk region of Russia. But if I'm not mistaken, he was born in a sort of a small town or a village that is extremely close to the Belarusian-Russian border. And approximately 100 years ago, this region of Smolensk, it was officially part of Belarus. But back in those days, it was called the Belarusian Soviet Socialistic Republic, something like this. So
Okay.
it's considered. Uh, I've read some comments of some Belarusian sort of critics and sort of experts. They say that many of them they call Isaac Asimov, as we call these people, Belarusian Jews or Belarusian Jewish, something like this.
Okay.
So he, by some people in our country, he is considered to be sort of part of Belarusian heritage because this territory is quite related to Belarusian culture,
All
Belarusian land.
right.
That's why Isaac Asimov has some connection to our country as well. Yeah, and
Yeah, what a guy, what a contribution. I mean, he's such a brilliant mind, to contribute to the progress, right? It's
the
not
three
just a
laws of robotics.
fantasy.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a great storyteller, but he's also a great thinker. I mean, great scientific thinker.
scientist. Yeah,
Uh,
and
to,
that's
foresee what may happen in such a correct vision. That's incredible, from where he stands. Can you imagine, like 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, looking at the future it's a point that the people knew much less. I mean, that of course there had been, scientific evolution, technologies growing and such, but it is the early 20th century still, right? So from that standpoint, he is making an accurate prediction of the future in so many ways. And he's telling us stories from the future. What he actually tell us is robotic stories are happening now. If you read those I, Robot, for
iRobot.
example.
I've read iRobot. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Susan Kelvin. Yeah,
Yeah, in all his little robot stories, right? He's foreseeing a future of man-machine interaction, androids, what the technology we are starting to getting into today, and the consciousness or the self-conscious machine is like 1 or 2 steps away now. It's happening.
yeah.
So, and also, he mentioned a type of brain that's positronic, right?
Positronic brain. Yeah.
Positronic brain is a possibility. It may happen. It may happen. So, if you think of this 60 years ago, this guy was thinking of those things and writing stories. It's just
It was
incredible.
crazy. Yeah.
Incredible.
And in the iRobot book, it's interesting how these stories are, compiled. How are they created? So, like, the first stories are about the robots that couldn't talk, they couldn't speak, and the last stories are basically about these machines. He calls them the machine, which is so powerful. It knows almost everything, and it even, because of the three laws of robotics, one of the laws is that a robot, a machine, cannot harm a human being, and because this machine in the last stories is so powerful, the third, like, one of these laws was changed, that a machine cannot harm a human, but it was changed to a machine cannot harm the humanity, because these machines became so powerful and they know so much things, and they are it's prohibited for them to share some knowledge with the humanity, because
Right.
this knowledge can harm the humanity. And it's crazy because it all happened in this book with Dr. Susan Calvin in her lifespan, during her lifetime. So it's just what, like 50 years, 40 years? It's crazy.
Incredible, because it's what's happening now. Right? Although today's artificial intelligence is, let's say, still linear thinking, right? And artificial intelligence today is no smarter than a monkey. Fine, okay? But it's progressing. Just 15 years ago, it was as smart as a cockroach. Yes, because I mean, we were talking about the supercomputers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this Lawrence Livermore Labs supercomputer in the U.S. in California was the smartest, is the biggest, right, supercomputer in that time, and it was, I mean, calculated that the understanding or consciousness level of the whole system was as smart as a cockroach, which was a big achievement. Okay,
Yeah.
because a cockroach with this, very small brain capacity can survive in the nature, right? In our
Our
houses,
houses, right?
it survives, right? Right now, with all those connections, the cloud, internet, everything, the whole system is as smart as a monkey, which is not bad at all. That's mammal
It's
brain capacity, right?
mm-hmm.
One step further, with the labs, with the CEO of the brain, right? It will be a self-aware entity. That's what's expected, but maybe not with the current technology. With the upcoming quantum technology, right? Quantum
Mm-hmm.
computers, that is now a possibility. Maybe not tomorrow, but in a few decades, it's a possibility. Then we can start talking about, do not do any harm to humanity, because it can easily.
Yeah,
Can you
so
imagine?
so yeah, this path from narrow or weak AI, which is basically almost what we have now, like on this current stage, to super AI. They call it super AI, which, like even today, is perceived as something unattainable, unachievable. But
Mhm.
who knows? With this kind of progress, it might be interesting in the
Oh,
next several
it will
decades.
happen. It will happen. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
The bell is ringing and my kids are out. Can you give me
yeah,
30 seconds?
no problem, Professor, no problem.
Right back. So sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Well, considering this science fiction genre and this technological progress, which is sort of depicted and illustrated in science fiction genre, if we try to sort of get the terminology clear, how can we just define science fiction as a genre? Is it possible to define it with some exact definition?
Sure. Because if the science is not involved, it's fantasy,
Hmm.
just fiction. Okay. When the science involved in not in a positive manner, but in a logical manner, then it becomes science fiction. And some authors, some movies, right, consider that, in great detail. For example, Arthur Clarke,
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Kubrick, right, 2001: A Space Odyssey, is a great example of that. I mean, it's seamlessly connected. with the book, with the novel of Arthur Clarke. It's actually a very good book if you care to read. Well, the main idea there is a star child. Okay, it's saying we belong to the stars, meaning maybe in between the lines, he's implying that we have. It's not the soul as defined in the religions, but our consciousness live in the space-time continuum or maybe beyond. Maybe Arthur Clarke's vision is going to the area of the simulation, right? The universe is a simulation, and we are not here as the real entities, but we are a simulation of something in a game, right? We've been created. It might be going into that if you look at the end of the story. But, overall, in that day's technology and science, he put everything in, okay? Without missing a point, okay? The rules of the universe, the physics, the gravity, how to survive in long-distance space travel, everything that's been known to the humanity was into that book, okay, or in that movie. And Stanley Kubrick really turned into a great movie. So overall, that book and the movie complete each other in many different ways. And it's considered 20th century's best science fiction.
Yes, I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, the book and the movie, especially the movie. So if you take that as a starting point, the rest of the science fiction movies and books can be, grouped and classified if you take that as a base. Okay, but there are so many other approaches, authors. They give us, lots of information and vision, adding some fantasy into it. But when the science is in it, it makes it much more believable. Okay, but the problem is the reception or the people getting interested in that kind of science fiction is getting smaller and smaller. As you make it more scientific, the less people are attracted to it.
And so the key distinction here would be that if there is no science involved, we cannot call this science fiction. It would be just fantasy genre, right?
If there is no science involved, exactly.
And
Okay, it's like Star Trek versus Star Wars. Yes.
and that's interesting because when I taught in the previous semester, I had like this group of almost 50 students, and because the course is related to electronic business, I thought that it would be really useful and helpful to include some sort of science fiction component into the course, because science fiction actually displays this sort of technological development and how it's connected to our communications, cooperations, social problems in society, and stuff like this. So I thought that would be important, and that's why I kind of I made some sort of a survey among my students. I asked them, so have you read something from science fiction? Like, do you read science fiction books or you watch science fiction movies? Are you generally interested in science fiction? Only one person out of 50, she said that I'm a big fan of Strugatsky brothers, this Soviet science fiction. She said because my father is a fan of Strugatsky brothers, and we have a sort of a full collection of all of their books in our house, and she's a big fan. It was fantastic to hear that from her. But other people, like 45 people, they wrote something like, I'm not really interested because I presume that science fiction is something like a fairy tale. So I think they some sort of confuse science fiction and fantasy, and maybe
Exactly.
they just
That's
don't
what a lot
feel
of
this
people.
distinction which you said.
Exactly. That's what a lot of people do. And the distinction, well, when you are really deep into science fiction, they call you a nerd. Okay.
Yeah.
And, Trekkies are nerdy people for the rest of the people. I mean, if they go too much into details, because in that franchise over the years, of course, the technology, the ideas, whatever is new developing in the horizon was put into that show. It's not exactly book based because they are mostly written, chapter by chapter, or each and every fragment of the show has been written separately, individually. In some shows, it's a continuing story, but still, all the segments are written independently. So that actually gives more chance to the show to evolve, with the technology and science. As we know more, they add into it. But recently, unfortunately, this new trend around us, right, pull that show into a more Star Wars-like genre, I would say. Less science, more technological wonders and amazement. Obviously, the visuals are much better, right? But the stories get smaller and smaller. And, the information they include in the show in scientific sense gets lesser, because they want to appeal to a bigger crowd, obviously, not just the Star Trek fans. So, but I mean, think about that. That shows is 60 years old plus, okay? And with that show, some of the technologies we have today had been a reality. The cell phone, for example, okay? The cell phone actually inspired by Star Trek. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, the cell phone idea, communicating with a device that would do, many other things from a distance. Well, in the 60s, it was a miracle, right? But technologically, it was possible. Scientifically, it was possible. So it was added in the show. And people, just because of Star Trek, became engineers. Thousands of younger people in those days became engineers and scientists just because of the show's motivation, inspiration. Okay, and some of them tried to make everything in that show a reality, and they still do.
Yeah, this motivation, I think it's the same as with the Rocky movies, that after the Rocky movies, so many people started working out, started boxing and stuff like this. It was just this huge
Exactly.
cultural effect, first of all.
Yes. So science fiction actually can shape a part of the society. It gives you, a more open vision, creativity, right? Challenging in a positive way, right? With the nature, and succeeding with marvelous or genius devices and methods. So it's a very good inspiration if it's a positive science fiction. And there is this interesting thing. After the Second World War, people all around the world wanted to be positive because there are so many deaths and destruction, right? They just wanted to be in peace, and they wanted to hope. They expected good things from the future. So if you look at that era science fiction in the West, it's mostly positive. It's utopian, okay? But unfortunately, the times of peace bring people a kind of wish for aggression. I don't know why, but it usually happens, okay? So over the years, utopia became dystopia. I mean, if you look at today's science fiction, books and movies, they are mostly dystopic. It's all dystopia. Very few of them gives us a look at the future in a positive way. And it's affecting everybody all around the world, with or without knowing. It's all aggression, destruction, blood, explosions, people's blood bursting everywhere. Just check it out. I mean, just watch Netflix, Amazon, whatever. It's full of science fiction, not just dystopia, but violent. It's violent science fiction, always.
Okay, so we can say utopian, which is more positive, and the opposite is dystopian, which is kind of negative or even violent, with violence involved. That's the main.
Utopia is a book. It's also science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, Utopia is an island, right? Where everything is perfect. People
It's
don't
about
die.
perfection, right?
Yeah, everybody is so happy. Everything works perfectly. So Utopia. So Utopian from that book, right, comes to the language as the fantasy of everything is perfect.
Okay? Yeah. So in Utopia style, the author tries to sort of draw and create an ideal world, right? In dystopian, yes. It's all about the sort of absolutely opposite situation.
Negative, right? Everything is bad for humanity.
Yeah, you were saying.
Well, so there must be a reason for that. I mean, maybe they are connected. Everybody's communicating too much, and the bad news are really good news now. If it's bad, it's news. If it's good, nobody listens to it. Right? So we are in a culture, in an era right now, and of course, the science fiction or even the fiction fantasy, everything is affected by that, and it's getting more and more negative and violent every day. So to me, I mean, when I read that in the society, it's like a desire of a big war. I don't know what is cooking in people's minds, but it's probably connected. There are low-level, low-intensity wars everywhere. It is today's reality. So the science fiction is shaping with that and giving us a more darker and worse future every day, and it's affecting people.
So we have mentioned utopian, dystopian. Can we classify in also other terms science fiction? Are there any other sort of styles or subcategories of science fiction?
Sure. Look, there are some milestones, right, in science fiction. For example, in the 2000s, there was a movie called Matrix. Not 2000, sorry, end of the 90s. It's like 99, right? The Matrix is a movie came out and affected the entire world population almost. It became so popular. Have you watched it? I don't know. 3 Matrix movies.
Yeah, not all of them, but the first one, I think, yeah.
Okay. But if you go back to the beginning of it, it's a novel called Neuromancer. Okay. Originally, it was...
That's the original source, right, of the movie?
Neuromancer, yes, 1984, right, is the original story that led that Matrix movie. So in that, of course, with the evolution of the science and technology, as we know more, right, we can create more ideas, more science fiction, but 84 is actually quite limited for that. So William Gibson is actually a good thinker in that sense. I mean, a good predictor of the future. He foresaw, not just the future, of course. I mean, by using science, he created an idea. It's actually related to this simulation theory of physics now. It's a theory now. It's a valid scientific theory. We might be living in a simulation is not a fantasy. I mean, there is proof for some physicists. There is proof that we are living in a simulation. So in 1984, this person, William Gibson, sits down and writes that story. It's actually reality behind reality and behind another reality. The idea of the physical world we sense is actually just a simulation, and there is another reality behind it. Okay, that's the base of matrix. And then it actually became a theory in physics that we are living in a simulation. And if you look at that, the quantum knowledge we have today also tells us that.
Yeah.
Because yes, we are everything is made of quantum particles, right? But why a table is a table? In reality, this is solid light. So you are, and so I am. Okay, but the question is why? I mean, if everything is the real reality is quantum reality, so why are we in this limited shape right now? Why our consciousness is limited to this world? Because you are conscious as much as you can sense, and our senses are limited. Okay, so what is happening? Why the fastest speed in the universe is light speed? Have you ever thought about that? In this huge
Not really, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is the fastest speed? There's a speed limit. It's like speed limit 50, right? You can't go any faster than that in the universe. Why? In the quantum world, everything is much faster. Everything is happening at the same time. Why is there any time? Why do we sense time? Right? So it's like, and in the quantum physics, right? You look at, if you're an observer, it is reality for you. If you don't observe, there is a different reality.
Yeah, exactly. So the influence, the impact of an observer, just
Yes.
the presence of an observer changes the situation diametrically opposite completely. If there is an observer that observes, comparing to the situation with no observer, that's also interesting.
Yeah. So all those things, bringing these are all discussed in those, quality science fiction stories, and you can actually get a lot of information from them. I'm not a physicist. I am not a positive scientist. I'm a social scientist, right? But from watching, good science fiction, reading good science fiction, because it's also interesting. You get a lot of knowledge about the nature and the universe around us. But it has to be quality. I mean, watching Star Wars is not going to give you anything. Okay, it's a story of medieval ages in space, basically. But other than that, there are really good books that you can benefit from. Even the older writers like Isaac Asimov and Arthur Clarke that we discussed, if you go back to their stories, they're solid. And they are very human-oriented. And we mentioned Star Trek, right? That's very human-oriented too. So their prediction of the future is based mostly on humans. That may change, okay? Because if we are capable of making anything better than us, at a certain point, there will be no need for us, right? So in one scenario, we can evolve with the technology we create and become something else. It might be a faster evolution into the future. That's another possibility, right? So all those things, just to open your mind, read science fiction or watch good quality science fiction, not dystopia.
Okay, so can we say that even though we have this technology component in science fiction, and as you said, if there is no science involved, it's not possible to call that science fiction. Even though it's true, can we say that science fiction, or as you said, like good quality science fiction, is firstly and mainly about the humanity, human interactions, and our interactions, our communications as a society? So it has this technological component, but can we say that this is just some sort of a tool, the technology, the scientific things that we have, this is a tool that we can use in order to somehow improve our society, improve the humanity, and sort of, go beyond the horizons. So can we say something like this?
Absolutely. I mean, because it's an influence on the society. No matter what, I mean, maybe hundreds of millions of people are watching science fiction and fantasy. Okay, however you lead them, especially with those highly invested movies like Marvel or DC. It's everywhere now. Everyone is watching at least 1, 2, or 3 series, right? So what kind of messages are we getting from them? Just think about it. The universe can be controlled by an evil force, and we have to have, great people with powers to stop that. Okay, that's a fantasy.
And what about humans and the structure? What about humans that don't have any superpowers, right?
Yes,
Are
that's the problem,
are
right?
they abandoned, right?
Yes, they're not abandoned, but they have to be protected. So those are actually all those things are born out of our fears, right? Something superior can take us away in one shot, right? That's a fear, a superior power coming from another part of the universe to wipe us out, right? That's the concept, because a lot of people are afraid of the unknown. So if the unknown is really bad, it may happen. Just think about that. I mean, for even some of the greatest scientists mentioned that. Just before his death, Stephen Hawking was talking about this, if you know. You know Stephen Hawking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure.
The physicist, yeah. So one of his ideas is, two major ideas of dystopia came from him. One is, if we continue evolve, this technology of AI, at some point, the machine starts to make machine by itself without human interaction. At that point, the umbilical cord is broken. Okay, you have no control over the machine. What happens after that is disaster, because smarter and smarter generations will come faster and faster, and at some point that system is going to think that those humans are useless, which will be true. Then what's going to happen after that? They consume a lot, they damage the planet.
Yeah, it's
They
interesting.
damage each other. Wouldn't that be the conclusion? I mean, if you look at us overall as a society, the human society, that's real. So what's going to happen if the system has the power to wipe us out? Can you imagine? It's controlling everything, logistics, production, manufacturing. We are laying down, doing nothing. Well, what's going to happen is,
If you have the 3 laws of robotics by Isaac Asimov, maybe we
if
have
you
a
don't have the
chance.
laws, yes, you can kiss yourself goodbye. You say bye-bye. So that's one of the conclusions came out of Stephen Hawking's mind. And the other one is about the aliens. He was saying, don't send those messages, space vehicles with messages on them outside the solar system, because what if somebody with bad will comes to this planet with an superbly advanced technology and knowledge? Maybe they will like our resources on the planet and they will wipe us out. You'd never know. That's one of his visions as well. All right.
About the aliens, there was this joke that why aliens don't come to Earth? Why don't we see aliens? Well, just because they see that we're so stupid comparing to them that they're not interested. So that's just some sort of a joke that maybe in the future, if we sort of progress, if we develop, if they exist and they will see that we are now more interested for them, maybe something can happen in this regard. And you also mentioned the superpowers, the factor of superpowers. There's actually a great book of Strugatsky brothers, the most prominent authors in Soviet science fiction. The book is called Hard to Be God. And one of the ideas of this book is that people from the Earth, the humans, and in this book, Earth is depicted as a utopian Earth. So we've achieved an extremely great level of progress. There are no wars, no conflicts. Like, everything is extremely good and bright. And the humans, they were able to travel, this interstellar travel. They were able to notice that there are different worlds outside of our galaxy, and they found a planet in which there are humans on this planet. Basically, like biologically, they're also humans, but their sort of lifestyle, their social life is constructed based on some sort of medieval culture, and people from the earth, they traveled. They are called the institution workers. So it's like an institution that studies how we, people from the progressive earth, can impact, for example, these people from other planets, so that they will also sort of progress as well. And they came to this planet, and they were observing all of these things, this violence, this awful things that happened in this sort of old-fashioned societies, if we can call that. But in this book, these workers of the institution, this sort of, they're like spies, they were not allowed to interfere. That was the most important condition for them. They were sent to this planet, but the first and most important condition for them was that you are not allowed to interfere, because it's like they are like scientists, historians, and they study how this planet will develop without human interactions. And so these spies, they were like spying on them, and they saw all of this violence, atrocities, all of these awful things that happened, and they came from this progressive, bright, brilliant Earth. They see this violence, and they have no opportunity to interfere. And that's one of the main ideas of this book. That's why it's so interesting. It's like the situation in which a planet has its superpowers, and these superpowers are represented by humans from the Earth. So, like, hard to be a god. And for these people who came to this planet, it was hard to be a god. That's why it's also related to the superpowers thing. It's an extremely interesting book.
But you know what? This same idea had been discussed in Star Trek over and over again. The Federation, right, in this Star Trek genre, has a prime directive. So when they have to make a first contact, until a certain point, the society develops technologically and culturally, they never interfere. Even after that point, no interference policy, because it always happens. If you go to a primitive culture with a high technology, you will be perceived as God. There's no exception to the rule. Can it be? Just imagine that, with superpowers like transportation, right? Teleportation, or ray guns, right? Lasers and phasers and such. You can fly. And if it's a primitive society, of course they will see you as gods. There can't be anything else. So instead of interfering or showing, right, they look at the society and say, okay, let them progress if they can survive. When they have the warp drive capacity, then we will contact. It is the point of contact with the society.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and once you come to that point, you can travel faster than light, either with a warp drive or a similar technology. They contact, which is a kind of Asimov's 3 robotic rules, right? It's one of the Star Trek rules, set in 1964. Again. But it's a very good idea, very good approach, right? And of course, you expect the same if aliens are coming to this planet. They should do the same. And we are almost 2-3 steps behind that. It may happen. The warp engine has been designed. It just requires some energy, but all the warp theory is now in effect. It can happen. Just check the internet, okay? What was his name? The French named Mexican engineer actually first started it. Alcubierre warp field. Okay, that's a physics theory, and then some other scientists, physicists worked on it with much more energy efficiency. Now, actually, a warp engine is developable. I mean, still we don't have the compact energy source for that, but it's much more doable now. And the advancement of the societies, if you think in the galactic or universal terms, is all about energy. And physicist is a very good classification for that. We are a 0.7 energy level society. Did you know? Okay, level one is if you are benefiting from the entire solar energy in your solar system.
Okay.
Meaning, whatever is coming onto your planet, you're turning it into energy to use for your purposes. Right now, we can convert like 30-35% of it. Okay, when we come to 100%, there will be no fossil fuels at all, and the energy problem will be resolved. That's level one. Okay, if you achieve that, you are actually you should be able to travel in your solar system to every point physically. Okay, that's one thing. And the second, level two, is harnessing the entire power of your sun, basically your star. Yes.
And after that, we will be able to do interstellar travel, right?
Exactly. I mean, if you come to that level of, absorbing and using energy, then yes, intertravel, or you can travel your entire galaxy. Level 3 is harnessing multiple star energies through your travels and going from galaxy to galaxy.
Yeah.
It's the level 3 civilization. Okay, so it's all about energy, energy collection and energy use. Because everything is related to energy, okay? All of the technologies. We have the warp engine, but we cannot drive it. We can't use it in space travel because we cannot get the energy, compact energy sources to make it run, okay? Once you solve that issue, we have the warp engine. See?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you need to recommend as an influencer to people to read positive science fiction.
And actually, you mentioned not simply positive science fiction. You mentioned high quality science fiction.
Yes, exactly.
So, in this regard, can you name your personal top 3 science fiction books and maybe top 3 science fiction authors, if possible?
Well, from childhood and youth connections, I will definitely name Arthur Clarke and Asimov as my favorite authors of all times, because it became more negative and negative. Well, technologically, it was more advanced, but after the 2000s, whatever is written contains more information, more technology, but a darker picture. So I read them. I like them, but I cannot make them my favorites. Okay, so yes, Clarke and Asimov too, and of course, Gene Roddenberry is not a writer. I mean, he's the beginning. He was the author of the Star Trek, but the whole thing, the whole franchise. I mean, those are my childhood favorites, and they never changed. Okay, yeah. And but of course, we can mention so many others. George Orwell, in those days.
Ray Bradbury also. Can Ray Bradbury consider science fiction?
Heinlein, of course. Yeah. I mean, I have the whole collections of them. But, the authors and the author-producer, Gene Roddenberry, they are my favorites. I mean, of course, there are many others. Emil Knight, for example, is a great novel. Nicole Griffin, that's late 90s. There are whole bunch of authors in the 2000s as well. But if you look at, for example, Clockwork Orange, I mean, it's also Stanley Kubrick's great movie,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best science fiction movies of all time. Yes, but still too dark to my taste. Okay,
Interesting. Yeah.
Blade Runner, revolutionary, right? It was a very interesting look into things. Still super dark, right? Bleak future movie or book.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very good book, but it's too dark for my taste. That's why, I of course like them. I respect those authors, but my favorites remain as. What are your favorites?
The classical ones, right? The classical ones.
The classics, because as I said, after the Second World War, people hoped, they had high hopes of the people and of the future. And everything written in those days affected us. My generation had been affected by those, inspired by those people. We still have that hope. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's why, teaching is important for me because of them.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Yeah? So we have hope still. And we want to live with that hope. I don't want to be a dark visioned person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see the future is bleak. I have kids. I want to hope.
Optimistic.
We should all hope. And what else we can mention? Okay, what is that little boy's story that figures that he is actually an android? Do you remember that?
Not really.
Okay, I will tell you if I remember that.
Okay.
Oh, one more thing: the Hitchhiker's Guide to Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
To the galaxy, yeah.
It's Douglas Adams' book. Okay, it's a classic. That also is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, right? Scientific, funny, and very positive. Okay, it's also there's lots of humor in it, and it's fun to read. I definitely recommend that. It's one of the top science fiction books ever. It's a classic. All right.
That's some great classical taste. Thank you for the recommendations. Because
Absolutely.
I'm just now I'm sort of consciously starting to delve into all of this, and well, I gotta tell that I was really impressed by Heinlein, and I was impressed by Strugatsky brothers, their Soviet science fiction.
I never read a book. Do you have a PDF for them?
I do know that Strugatsky brothers are available in English, that's for sure. I think I can look for some options on how to share some of their books with you.
So there's no PDF. Would they be on Kindle, Amazon, for example?
I don't know, but I can assume that there should be. But like what I know from 100% that they are available in English, because there are some Soviet science fiction authors which are also great authors, great writers, but as far as I know, they were not translated into English. But Strugatsky brothers, they were like translated into English. So
I would love to read at least one, to sample, to see how they saw, because in the Soviet times, right, they were writing.
Yes. The guru of Soviet science fiction. They even are called here. Yeah. They're called. Some people said that they have their own personal style inside of science fiction that some people call social science fiction or social fiction, something like this. There's extremely interesting.
Okay, the science fiction about the society's evolution. Right?
Yes, and they wrote this book Hard to Be Got with this series. They were not simply writing books separate books on science fiction. They created a collection of books all related to one big idea and the development of this idea. So it's extremely interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
I will look for the PDFs. I will search for that. So we'll just get in touch.
Is it more like 1984? Um,
Mm,
because it's a societal science fiction too. Big Brother, right?
well, not really, not really. They
Okay.
it's difficult to describe that, but well, because of the fact that I didn't read the whole series or the books, the whole collection, only one book for now. But this one book is a even though it's a part of their big idea of their big collection, even inside of this part, it's a separate universe, a separate world with these
Okay.
ideas inside of the book. So that's extremely interesting. And these brothers, their biography is also interesting. If I'm not mistaken, one of the brothers, he was a specialist in languages. He was some sort of
Hmm.
a professional translator, if I'm not mistaken. And the other was he was either an engineer or a scientist, a mathematician,
Okay.
something like this. So one of them was sort of humanitarian, and the other
Hmm.
was this
Engineer.
engineering style. And their
I see.
combination, and their brothers and their combination, it was like perfect. It was unbelievable.
Hmm. All right. Well, one of the other societal science fiction would be The Employees. Okay. And the author is Olga Novorsky. I think she might be Russian. All right. That's an interesting. I read the summary of it, the issue, but I will order it over Kindle and read it. It's brand new. I mean, it's like came out like last year or so.
Hmm.
So it's about the future society as well. It's very interesting, and I mean, I might recommend it as well. All right,
Okay, thank you. And
for the employees.
yeah, so considering this sort of importance of science fiction in general, I have a question. Do you think, mm, like, do we need to include, for example, science fiction books and science fiction literature into our school program, educational program?
Absolutely, not the of course not the dark science fiction,
Mm-hmm.
not the bull science fiction, but the good science fiction should be included. As I said, it's Star Trek is a TV series. Transformed a generation, maybe two generations of people into scientists and engineers. I mean, it's just incredible. You inject that into a society. Of course, it was in those days, but this can be done again in today's technology and science. With good science fiction, you can actually lead people into innovations, into being scientists, into discovering and inventing or innovating many things that would be beneficial for all of us. Right now, I don't see that happening. Everything is financed in science, has a purpose. It's either profit or it has an evil purpose. Not everything, of course, but there is always a reason. The pharmaceuticals industry. I'm not sure. Anything and everything is the benefit of humanity. Happening there. Okay, weapons technology, huge money is invested into that. I mean, if you can put that kind of resources into advancement of the agriculture, for example, food or regeneration of the nature, we would have been in a different place. But one of the best investments would be for parenting, Nikita.
Mm.
You know why?
Tell me.
Okay, look at today's problems, right? Most of the problems are coming from problematic people. Look at the leadership of the world. I mean, I don't see any, positive and good leadership into a bright future, right? Now, the leadership is taking us into a swamp of fighting.
There is no vision, right? No vision. No one provides
That's
any sort of vision.
Yes, and that's not coincidence. Okay, look, insecure people must secure themselves with power. okay? Because they must control. If you're insecure, nothing is enough for you to make you secure because it's in your head. And insecurity comes from bad childhood, 99%. Okay, bad experiences in the childhood make you an insecure person. For some people, well, that's great motivation. If it has been shaped well, okay, that person will climb to a better place and maybe do well for others as well. But in most cases, they don't. Okay, insecure people work for themselves because they have to cover themselves. They have to pull the blanket onto themselves. Okay, and they don't want other people to be powerful. They want to control them. So what's happening in the world today is just because of those people. Most of the leaders of business, of politics and such are those people. But to me, they have sick minds, okay? And why is this happening? It's because of bad parenthood. In 90% of the cases, probably, that's bad parenthood. People don't know what they're doing, okay? Abusing a child, leaving a child unattended, on the streets because you don't have enough finances, you don't have enough time, you don't have enough knowledge to, upbring it and bring a child to life, to the world. Well, it causes children with problems, and they become problems for the society. And if those numbers are growing, you get into trouble as the whole societies of the world. That's what's happening now, okay? So look, for anything and everything, we have licenses, right? We have a driver's license to drive. We have hunting license. We have a license or diploma for anything, but not for parenthood. Anyone can make a child at will, 1, 2, 10, 20. There's no limit. There's no stopping. And there's no education. There's no testing for that. As a result, right, this is happening now to us. And, for the good investment for humanity, I would definitely bring that kind of a system, from the school ages. We have to start training and educating people to become good parents or not to make children at all.
And I suppose that considering this also absence of any sort of vision, I do suppose that people are only able to think and make decisions only within the sort of the boundaries of their worldview, and
Yes.
if no sort of ideas of, let's call it, development or progress are or were sort of planted and ingrained into this person from the childhood, then
Yes.
it's maybe even naive to expect from this person after years to provide, create, or announce some sort of a vision. It's just
Yes.
absent in his personal worldview, in his personal viewpoint.
Exactly. So, well, most of the problems today we are experiencing is just because of that. Trust me. Okay, you will figure that out. I mean, anyone thinking with the right mind will figure that out. This is very simple, very obvious, but no one is acting or talking about it. It's like a taboo, right? I don't know, maybe because of the religions, because of the societal norms and such, but nobody's talking about this and nobody's doing nothing. But this is the source problem, okay?
Yeah.
People, power-hungry people are damaging us more than any time in the history because, the influence of the people with technology is grown so much. It's not isolated anymore. One person can affect everyone around the globe. And look at that. One person can make hundreds of billions of dollars as a person. Can you imagine if that person is a psycho and, with not just the employees, not just the people around the person, not just the customers, whatever, of that person are being affected by that. It's the entire globe, right? If that person is controlling a certain technology, if that person is a weapons manufacturer, what's happening us can be a result of that. Everybody is affected badly by that. It's just the person's personality drowning us. That's a possibility, and it's happening in the financial world. In the financial economy, money is getting into less and less hands with much more power and influence. There are some people in the finance world that are more powerful than the governments. So the future is shaped by those powers. I don't know if it's good or bad for us, but I am not seeing it as a good thing happening to everybody.
And what we see today is this constant growth of military budgets globally, and it's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And
yes.
As you said, we can say it's a complicated and complex issue, but with this source coming from childhood, right?
Yes, simple as that. Yeah. I mean, look at the people's behavior. It's called NPD. It's a very common thing among people. Narcissist personality disorder, NPD. Okay, and those people can be very attractive. Okay, they want to be
from the first glance.
Well, I mean, they can act to the end. I mean, they can lure you in. They can hypnotize you because they will smile, they will charm, they will take advantage of you in many ways, or they will just overpower you, somehow. And the whole idea is either to benefit from you or to overpower you. And they do that very well. And in the end, they want everything, including your resources, but they don't care about you. And look around you, you will see lots of NPDs, okay, either climbing or already climbed to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's extremely interesting to see how many sort of problems, so many components of different problems we can detect, identify. But if we try to think about them, sometimes very often we can just trace the origin, the source, and if we trace it to the end, it turns out that the fundamental problem is just one or two, not so many, right?
And it's a bad childhood. In most cases, not of course not always, but in most cases it is. Okay, because your personality grows, from the moment you are actually not in the womb, but in the 6th, 7th month, you are actually growing because you're hearing, right? And the mother tongue affects your brain development. And then after you're born, the first experiences, anything and everything starts to shape up the neural connections in your brain. It's like a tree, okay? So from the root, there are lots of branches. Sometimes a branch grows bigger, larger, and it becomes a tree, or multiple branches grow, and the unused ones are cut, okay? So actually, the brain neural connection is a tree. So once it starts growing, I mean, you can't just chop it off and plant a new one, okay? Whatever you have to go on in life. So if it is a bad experience in your early ages, it will be with you forever. You can't get rid of it. It's your personality now. So insecure person is an insecure person forever, and they never stop, okay? To secure themselves. And as a result, everybody get damaged.
But if we make use of the positive science fiction from the childhood, or it's not, I think, not only about science fiction, or not exclusively about science fiction, just some sort of, providing or teaching the fact that there is some sort of responsibility for your actions, and there has to be, and I will use the word has to be, some sort of vision, and vision should be provided, should be created, and it can only be created if in your worldview you have this thing that you understand that you actually need this vision, because what happens today, as we discussed, that like now it's 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 no vision. It's no vision, right?
Yeah, it's not a good vision, at least. It's not a shared vision with everyone. Everybody is sharing a dystopic vision. And it might be intentional. You know.
Mm.
All those
It's
drugs,
interesting, right?
yeah, all those drugs pumped into societies, violence pumped into societies. It's like I don't know, all these gender issues pumped. It's too much. Rather than balancing the equality, it is like almost, I feel like, enforced into believing into something, um, which I don't mind. I mean, it's not like I have no problem with the gender spectrum, okay? But it's the message is overpowering. It's coming from every direction, especially in the Western societies, on everybody. I'm not sure if that is necessary, but it's creating a culture. So with all those things, I'm not sure, the personal opinions are polarized in a lot of societies. People are polarized. And to, settle people down, maybe the drugs are pumped into societies more than any time ever we have known. So I don't know what is going on. I mean, so I don't want to lose hope, but I'm not sure where the human society is being directed. This is not happening by itself. So all those, wars, anything and everything, if you add them together, we are living in a very strange time.
Weird, right? Weird.
Yes, very interesting times we are going through. So
Yeah,
maybe we should
but
write.
simultaneously, it's interesting, right? So we are part of an interesting period that may result, I think, in some sort of transformation.
Yes.
I'm not talking about evolution or progress, but at least transformation, or not at least, but some. I think we have the capacity and we have the potential. I think if we move from the dystopian position to utopian, obviously, also,
Mm-hmm.
I think there is great potential.
Well, when I'm fully retired, I really want to write about this, you know, a better parenting system. Maybe, I don't know, people might be agreeing with me in the future, but I definitely do that. It might be in a science fiction form.
That will be a double kill. If
Yeah,
a double kill, yeah, it will be so interesting to read that for me personally.
yeah, yeah. I really, as a conclusion, I think I will do that. It's in the back of my mind. I really want to do it, but I don't have the time and focus right now. But in a couple of years, I might. I really want to do that.
That would be great. And
Yeah.
well, moving to some kind of a conclusion, let's also try to, I think, construct a utopian version of a conclusion. Uh, Summing all this up, in your opinion, in your personal opinion, what for? And I'm using the what for because I think that if we ask why, it's some sort of a victimhood, the position of victimhood. Because if you always ask why, it seems that you are in a position of a crybaby, right? Of a child that is only demanding the final answers, that is demanding that everything will be done for him, and just why. But if you ask what for, I think it automatically puts you in the position of authorship, right? So what for do we need something, or what for does this happen? And considering science fiction, uh, how can you say, like, what for do we as humanity need, like, what for do we need science fiction as humanity, and what for do we need science fiction in terms of one individual person? So like macro and micro perspective, in your opinion.
Okay. Well, I think as the entire human society, of course, there are individual groups, segments that would not be affected by what's happening now in, not isolated pockets in some societies, that people living a good quality life. But overall, we are kind of in chaos. Okay. So we need hope more than any time in the history, probably, because if there will be war, right, it will be worse than anything we have ever seen before. And there are billions of people, right, on the northern hemisphere, and we will be affected very badly in a nuclear war situation. So, and it's a possibility. I mean, it's a growing possibility that it may happen. So, I mean, to prevent that, I mean, whatever we can, we should do to people take people into a more positive direction. Just sometimes 1 or 2 steps can take a large group of people into a direction. So we should try. We should take the responsibility. It's not just our responsibility, but the authors, the filmmakers, the influencing people, everybody has a responsibility in that. Instead of pulling people into a dystopic movement or direction, we should do the other way around. It might be difficult because maybe people don't like that, okay? But if they don't have much choice, then probably they will be seeing good things in that as well, some enjoyable things. And, the news people should do the same, because they feed the society with bad news. Well, there are good things are happening too, but we don't hear them, we don't see them. It's the same for science fiction or fiction or any other parts of the literature. We should have that responsibility. It is a responsibility now because we are in a critical time.
Embrace responsibility and embrace responsibility and do something. It's about action. So it's good to embrace responsibility, to take responsibility, but what's next? There has to be some action, right?
Yes.
We need action.
We need good thoughts and good action. Yes, you're right. And what you're doing, if this will be broadcasted, is a good thing. It's a very responsible behavior. Maybe our message will reach to people, right? And influence them. At least it makes them think. Hopefully, right?
I also want to include this conversation, or at least parts of the conversation, into my electronic business management course, because I do think it's substantial. It's and the things that we discuss today, they are, well, to put it mildly important and extremely important.
Amen. I hope so.
I expected that answer.
It makes sense, right? It will make sense. But, I like your style. I like what you're doing, and I appreciate it. I thank you so much for that. You should do more of this. And but for now, right, the positive thinkers are influencing a minority. But you'd never know when the numbers grow, when people get together in platforms. It may grow. It might influence other people as well.
Sometimes the situation can change dramatically, just immediately, right? And
yes.
You might
sometimes
expect
it's the critical mass. When you reach critical mass, it's a different movement in a different direction. So people like us should try harder. Right? That should be the conclusion.
Yeah. Professor Alex, thank you very much for this great conversation.
I thank you.
It's pleasure. It was real pleasure for me.
My pleasure.